Okay, thankfully your boy did it. He made it and was able to get 2 videos out by November. Nice. Alright. While I'm doing this video, I will say I recorded this before my vacation, but I'm posting this on my time on vacation. So I just wanted to let that out of the way. I posted the Bukuro Makoto one from last week. That one I posted before I left for vacation. This one I'm posting around the time I'm on vacation, since I'll be spending the rest of November where I'm at. And that's all I'm going to tell you. But to the actual video, we are talking about what would happen if Polnareff dies out of Kakyoin. Now, this is based on the whole things where I asked for a character to live and die get swapped places, and I made a timeline out of it. Like the Lisa and Caesar one, this one was one that I thought could be a cool video, so I thought, why not? Let's experiment on this one. I could try the other ones out on that one. I might, probably. So, but anyway, here's kind of just like the what if in general. So, yeah, this one's an interesting one, and I know I've done a lot of characters dying instead of other character what ifs, but a lot of people show a lot of interest in those videos, so hopefully this video can deliver as well. And I hope you enjoy this one, because this one did kind of take me a bit of time to think of a timeline, but I believe I can think of a decent timeline for this one. Now, first thing is like part 3 and how that changes. Now, off the bat, one thing is for certain about part 3, and that is the fact that mostly nothing's going to change until the final fight. That's like for certain. And like the question is, how do I like kill off Polnareff and let Kakyoin live? Because realistically, they were not really there together. Is there a way for Polnareff to die and Kakyoin to live, I guess? Well, I guess one way you can do it is maybe in this timeline, Polnareff is the one who fights Dio instead, assuming you want to switch the route where maybe instead the person who has to reveal the world's power is legally obligated to die. If that's your logic, and Polnareff has to be the one who does it in this timeline, I assume. It's gonna be tough. I think he might have to just like remove Chariot's armor, and he'd have to try to speed around Dio. If anything, I think he should be able to do it in time. Seeing how Kakyoin's Hierophant web probably took a lot of time for him to set up, I'm pretty sure Chariot's armor removal probably should at least be faster than that. So I'm pretty sure Polnareff has at least a bit of an early head start to where Kakyoin really didn't have that head start. Another thing, I guess, is like assuming that Polnareff does eventually get to a point where he's somehow able to get Dio to stop time, and he can figure it out somehow. How would he deliver the dying message? This one's a lot easier, and this one would be pretty easy in that Polnareff can just launch Silver Chariot's blade out. He did it against like Anubis, and I'm pretty sure he did it another time, but I don't remember when he did it. But yeah, Polnareff was able to like launch Chariot's blade out a couple times. So in theory, I'm pretty sure Polnareff could reach the clock tower from where he was. I'm pretty sure he could. Like probably for like plot's sake, he obviously will. And then that would probably just leave to Kakyoin having to play the Polnareff role in like the later half of the final fights. Like Kakyoin has to go against Dio and he ends up getting hurt and stuff, saving Jotaro. Another route you could potentially go with is just having Kakyoin just survive Dio's attack, whatever Dio does. Maybe he doesn't donut him, or maybe Kakyoin somehow survives being donut by some miracle. And then I guess in the case of Polnareff, maybe when he goes against Dio, Dio either just kills him within time stop, or maybe Jotaro doesn't break the act and Polnareff does get killed before Jotaro can even do anything. Like that, like those are kind of, that's assuming you want to keep Kakyoin as the one to reveal the world's power, and you want to keep Polnareff as like the one to save Jotaro, but instead Polnareff dies saving Jotaro instead. That's like, I guess, some alternative ways you could kind of look at it. I don't really think the way Polnareff dies really matters to the story. Um, I'm pretty sure whatever role Polnareff and Kakyoin do in the final fight really doesn't do much or really dictate what happens later on. I'm pretty sure Polnareff would probably just die somewhere against Dio, and either it's going to be Polnareff taking Kakyoin's place, or Polnareff just dying when he goes to save Jotaro. And in the case of Kakyoin, it's either Polnareff takes his death place, or like Kakyoin just gets like hurt really badly, but not enough to like kill him or nothing. But that's kind of all I could really see here. And I guess overall, that's kind of it for part 3. But I do want to kind of talk about the aftermath of part 3, because this does have a lot of effect on the future of the franchise. Because Polnareff plays a pretty big role in the story, and I'm pretty sure Kakyoin's survival would lead to Kakyoin needing to play a big role as well. So obviously, Kakyoin is going to have to be like friends with Jotaro. Since Kakyoin's going back to Japan with Jotaro, I'm pretty sure they would still be buddies and stuff. So I'm pretty sure Kakyoin and Jotaro would hang around a lot more than like Polnareff. So I'm pretty sure Jotaro maybe isn't as depressed, because maybe he has like Kakyoin to like cope, like Kakyoin can help like cope with his feelings. And I'm pretty sure, but then again, like maybe in this timeline, Polnareff gets killed in front of Jotaro. So maybe if anything, Jotaro's PTSD might be a little worse. But Kakyoin's at least able to keep him mentally sane, so that he doesn't fully go and become depressed because of everything that happened in part 3. So maybe Kakyoin can like help him out and stuff. I'm pretty sure they'd just graduate high school together, since they were both attending high school by that time. So by that logic, after 3 ends, it's like obviously the whole, I guess, investigation into stands, because I'm pretty sure Jotaro still wants to do that, so he would call over Kakyoin to help in like Polnareff's place. Now, since we're going with Kakyoin and Jotaro, the question is what happens when they discover everything. Like, they're going to discover, I guess, Diavolo finding out about the arrows, which I'm pretty sure they will. And also, while that's happening, Jotaro probably discovers the Heaven Journal, and while that's happening, Kakyoin can discover the stand arrow. While that's all happening, Kakyoin can discover the arrow, and Jotaro can still read Dio's journal. That could lead to Jotaro burning it, and everything like that kind of just going the same. And now the question is, what happens when it goes to like the whole arrow investigation? Since now they're gonna have to, I guess, hunt the arrows. Well, I believe when it comes down to it, there's like a couple scenarios on what happens here. One scenario is that maybe Kakyoin just does what Polnareff did and goes to where Polnareff originally hunted the arrows down. While in the case of Jotaro, he kind of just does what he does in the canon. Option 2 is basically having Kakyoin and Jotaro like stick together. Maybe they just like investigate like Italy together, or like investigate all those places together. If anything, they would probably just go into Passione and look into that together instead. That's like one route that could happen. Another route, and this is the kind of interesting route, is Kakyoin is the one who ends up going to where is Jotaro decides to do the whole investigation into Italy and stuff, while Kakyoin probably just does his own thing, leading to him probably having to be the one who investigates into like Josuke and stuff. There's a lot of actual scenarios that come out of this, and I'm going to probably discuss each scenario. I'm pretty sure this would have a lot of effects, and I'm going to kind of move over to now part 4, or at least the future parts now, to kind of discuss these changes, because I do feel like each part would have its own changes. But yeah, here we go. Let's talk about the future parts now. Now, first we're talking about Diamond is Unbreakable. Now, if we're going with like a scenario where like Kakyoin just goes and does what Polnareff originally does, I'm honestly nothing would really change. Kakyoin going into Italy and him kind of looking into that stuff, and assuming he ends up getting captured like how Polnareff originally was, nothing would really change. Like Kakyoin wouldn't be part of the whole adventure in Morio, and he would be stuck in Italy having to deal with Diavolo and stuff. Um, Now, assuming if Kakyoin still does the Italy investigation, but unlike Polnareff, maybe he's able to get out, or maybe by some miracle he defeats Diavolo, which is unlikely, but hey, maybe somehow he thought of something. I mean, he was a smart guy after all. But assuming Kakyoin is out of Italy and maybe he's in, I guess, Morio, like assuming that could happen, then I don't really know what exactly would change, except that Kakyoin's there and he's just there to kind of chill. That's like scenario one. I'm pretty sure he'd be helpful against like Angelo. He could be helpful against Akira. He could definitely help out against Kira. Um, there's some fights I could definitely see Kakyoin maybe participating in during Diamond is Unbreakable. What fights exactly, I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure Kakyoin would do something in Morio to help out Jotaro, assuming he was there. Now, assuming that Jotaro and Kakyoin are like together, maybe they ended up investigating Italy together. Either maybe they defeated Diavolo, or maybe they failed to defeat Diavolo. That's like another route you could go with. Maybe they get killed by Passione somehow. Or maybe Kakyoin and Jotaro just escape Italy before anything could happen to them. Now, assuming we're going with a route where Jotaro and Kakyoin are both like alive in this timeline, like maybe they did the Italy thing together and both made it out in one piece or something, or maybe they just escaped narrowly or something. Like maybe Diavolo's still on the run, or maybe he's already been defeated. Um, it would kind of what I stated earlier. Kakyoin being in Morio really wouldn't do much. I think he'd be there for some fights, and I could see him doing some cool stuff here and there, but that's kind of it. Now, another scenario is basically Jotaro not in Morio. So, either maybe in this timeline, Jotaro does the Italy investigation on his own, he gets stuck in Polnareff's mess, which is one route. Another route is maybe Jotaro and Kakyoin do the Italy investigation together, and maybe in this timeline they do like defeat Diavolo or almost defeat him but fail. But however, like Jotaro dies, like maybe in this timeline Jotaro sacrifices himself to like defeat Diavolo and get him arrested, or maybe Jotaro sacrificed himself so Kakyoin could escape Italy or something, and then he could die so Jotaro can like die to like Diavolo or something. I don't know. But assuming like Jotaro is out of the equation of part 4 and it's just Kakyoin, it would turn into my video I did where Kakyoin just replaces Jotaro in part 4, aka like what if Jotaro died instead of Kakyoin. It kind of just turned into that what if basically, assuming we're going with the timeline where Jotaro's either stuck in Italy or he was killed by Diavolo by some way or something. But I'm pretty sure Kakyoin just does the Morio thing pretty good. I'm pretty sure his range probably could make up for some time stop stuff, but I don't know if they could defeat Kira at the end. But overall, depending on kind of what's happened in this timeline, depending on what Kakyoin decided to do, or depending on what Jotaro decided to do, I'm pretty sure part 4 might actually change. Unless we're going with a timeline where Kakyoin either dies in Italy or Kakyoin is stuck in Polnareff's position, I'm pretty sure part 4 could change actually. Assuming Kakyoin's not involved with part 4, or maybe Diavolo was defeated at the cost of Kakyoin's life, or maybe Diavolo is still on the loose and maybe Kakyoin died so Jotaro could barely escape Italy or something, I'm pretty sure that would have no effect on the story. But if Kakyoin is like in it, but if Kakyoin is like in Morio, maybe Jotaro is still there. Maybe Jotaro ended up dying in the Italy stuff, or maybe he's stuck in Italy in Polnareff's place. I'm pretty sure that there would be some changes at least. Kakyoin would have to play that role of a mentor, I'm pretty sure, either being an additional mentor or play the mentor role in Jotaro's place. That's all I could really say happening in this timeline. And that's kind of all I could add to Diamond is Unbreakable at the moment for that, I guess. But like that's just my opinion. Now, part 5 is definitely going to have the most changes, I feel. Now, in this timeline, uh, like, what if someone ends up going into Italy or they get stuck in Polnareff's position? Now, on a side note, assuming Jotaro and Kakyoin are both in Italy, in Polnareff's position, both together, for starters, this would obviously mean part 4 probably ends with Kira winning. And not only that, but when it regards to that, Journo should probably be long gone by that point, since he obviously needed Koichi's help to defeat Black Sabbath. But another scenario is that maybe Kakyoin just, or maybe like, Koichi probably, maybe Journo just defeats Black Sabbath some other way, and then Kakyoin and Jotaro are maybe just waiting there together or something. Another route is maybe Jotaro or Kakyoin alone are the ones doing the whole arrow thing, and that leads to them playing the Polnareff role. Assuming what a Hierophant Green Requiem or a Star Platinum Requiem would look like is kind of an interesting discussion. Maybe this would end up being another Chariot Requiem thing, and that just leads to the body swap, so Maybe this ends with Jotaro or Kakyoin becoming the turtle instead of like Polnareff, which probably is what might actually happen. Another route is if we're not going with like that route, assuming Jotaro and Kakyoin are both, I guess, like available. Um, Now assuming that Jotaro and Kakyoin are maybe both in Italy together, I don't know what exactly happens here. Now that they have like two additional people here, I do wonder what could be like body swap potential wise, or like what could potentially lead to a Requiem battle be like. I think Jotaro and Kakyoin together could be definitely a far more fierce opponent for Diavolo at this kind of state, especially if Kakyoin and Jotaro know about like what King Crimson is capable of, like how Polnareff did originally. So if anything, like Jotaro and Kakyoin together are probably bigger threats because you basically have the numbers gain, and plus you have two characters who were already smarter than Polnareff by part 3. So by this point of part 5, I think a part 5 version of I feel like part 5 Jotaro was definitely smarter than part 5 Polnareff, and I feel like this version of Kakyoin would definitely have been at least smarter than part 5 Polnareff, since he would have obviously grown with his stand and become better with it. So Diavolo arguably has to deal with an even bigger threat or two even bigger threats, or alternatively, Diavolo is just out of the equation, and everything in Italy just happens without Diavolo. Assuming Diavolo is overthrown in this timeline, like assuming Jotaro or Kakyoin or both being in Italy means Diavolo gets defeated even faster than he was in the canon, then I'm pretty sure that in this hypothetical timeline, that Kakyoin or Jotaro defeating him faster would just probably lead to Passione being taken into by the Speedwagon Foundation. I don't really know what exactly else would happen here. I'm pretty sure we would have the whole, um, I guess, like Passione just being out of the equation. Diavolo would either be dead or arrested. And I'm pretty sure that when it comes down to the rest of Part 5, I don't even know what Giorno would do if the whole Passione thing about that whole thing never happened. He may end up going down a bad path like his brothers from Part 6, and maybe could even lead to Giorno being a villain in Part 6. Maybe he goes to Florida, maybe he can't control his stand right, Pucci helps him, and maybe he tries to assassinate Jolene eventually, which is a scenario that could happen out of it. Another kind of scenario is like if that were to happen, if Diavolo were to be defeated faster, that would probably just lead to all of Team Bucciarati just being alive and just chilling. I don't know what they would really be doing at that point. I could see the Speedwagon Foundation definitely looking into them. They could also look into Risotto, since he had a pretty tragic backstory. So I'm pretty sure they could take him in as well and help him, I guess, become a member as well. Maybe the little Squadra guys, if assuming that their whatever their backstories are, I could see them probably taking them in. The only Passione people I don't see them taking in are like Chocolate and Secco, because they're like legit psychopaths. So like I don't see the Speedwagon Foundation wanting nothing to do with someone like that. And if anything, I could see Jotaro and or Kakyoin just taking out Chocolate and Secco. Like I could actually see them killing those kind of people because Chocolate and Secco were just that disgustingly evil. But honestly speaking, that's like one thing I could see. But assuming like Jotaro and Kakyoin don't like deal with Diavolo, and maybe we just get stuck with a similar part 5 in this timeline, uh that would just not really change. I assume there wouldn't really be any changes. But another alternative scenario to, I guess, come out of this timeline is maybe Jotaro and Kakyoin just don't go to Italy, or maybe they go in like during the Giorno investigation, since like maybe they knew about Passione but just wanted to wait it out, and maybe knowing this whole thing about Dio having a son in Italy, they're like, oh, this gives us like a perfect chance to like I guess investigate this stuff, and then that could just lead to Jotaro and Kakyoin just like going to Italy, and that leads to that whole thing happening. And I'm pretty sure Jotaro and Kakyoin should be useful. I'm pretty sure that they would help out a lot, and if anything, they would probably be even better help than Koichi. I assume Koichi may still go. I don't know. Maybe this could lead to like Josuke, Okuyasu, Rohan maybe going, but like that's a maybe. Um, Overall, Part 5 is definitely gonna change. The changes exactly I can't really say, but I'm pretty sure there would be some pretty big changes compared to like a lot of the other changes. And I feel like part 5 would have the most changes in this part, or at least in this timeline. I don't think there was really any other changes I could think of. Um, but that's kind of really it for part 5, and I don't really know what else I could add, to be honest. I feel like overall, if we're going, I feel like overall, if we're going with a timeline where someone gets stuck in Polnareff's position, that wouldn't really change much. If it's like only Jotaro or only Kakyoin, they would just be stuck in Polnareff's position. Assuming both are together, I'm pretty sure they could just defeat Diavolo a little bit quicker. Bruno would probably still die in this timeline, but I feel like Narantia might actually get to live. Bacchio would die since he died earlier on. Uh, Another time, assuming that's the timeline we go with, if they're both together. Assuming Diavolo is already defeated, then I guess everyone in Team Bucciarati is just chilling and doing their own thing. And assuming that Jotaro and Kakyoin just wait until the Giorno investigation to go into against Passione, that is a very interesting debate alone. I could see the Morio cast maybe even getting involved. They could bring the Requiem thing into the story, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't use Requiem in part 5 in this timeline. I don't even know if they would bring the arrow unless they feel like Diavolo is that kind of a level threat that they need to use the arrow just to defeat him. Since Kakyoin finds the arrow, he's probably going to be the one who keeps it instead of Polnareff. So by that logic, Kakyoin's going to be the one who might have to use Requiem, or Jotaro's going to have to use Requiem, or Giorno would still have to use Requiem just to defeat Diavolo. But that's just my opinion on what I could see happening. And there's really nothing else I could really add to part 5, except that I do believe there would be a lot of changes because there is no Polnareff in this timeline since he's long gone. He died back in the Rome Colosseum stuff, etc. I mean, not in the Rome Colosseum, but he died again. He died back in Egypt to like Dio. But yeah, that's kind of it. Sorry about the little botch, but yeah. Overall, there'd be a lot of changes without Polnareff in part 5. For sure, there would be a lot of changes. And regarding Stone Ocean changes, uh, assuming we go a route where Kakyoin just goes to Italy alone and pulls the Polnareff, nothing would change. It'd just be the same. Maybe Tenmei's there, but most likely not, because Kakyoin might be too busy in Italy to have a kid. Now, assuming we go a route where Jotaro ends up going to Italy instead, I could see Kakyoin maybe having like a daughter and maybe having Tenmei still. He'd probably have to have a daughter first so that she could become the protagonist and replace Jolene. Assuming Jotaro doesn't have the time to have Jolene. Assuming Jotaro does or doesn't. If Jotaro can't have Jolene in time, then there'd be no need for Kakyoin to have a daughter before Tenmei. But if Jotaro can't do it in time and Jotaro still goes through everything he goes through, then Kakyoin's probably going to have a daughter beforehand to play the Jolene role, in my opinion. Another, I guess, discussion regarding that is, what if Jotaro and Kakyoin, I guess, are both out of it? I guess regarding whether Jotaro and Kakyoin are still... I think if we're going with the timeline where Jotaro and Kakyoin went to Italy together, then the odds of them both having kids seem kind of slim. Unless you want to add Johto to the story. Well, I'm probably not going to. But when it comes down to it, I guess when it comes to, the other changes. Now, assuming Jotaro and Kakyoin maybe go to Italy together and just solo Diavolo, or maybe Jotaro or Kakyoin alone just go to Italy and solo Diavolo by some miracle, and especially in Kakyoin's case, by some miracle, since I don't think Kakyoin could take down Passione by himself. Jotaro could, but Kakyoin alone probably not. Both together probably actually could do it, and assuming that they both work together to do it, or if one of them did it alone, I'm pretty sure both Tenmei and Jolene are going to exist regardless. And assuming we go to a timeline where they postpone the Italy thing, then I feel like they're guaranteed to exist still no matter what. But by that logic, it kind of just turns into my Kakyoin what-ifs, like Kakyoin in Part 6 in particular. Because by that point, I don't feel like the plot's going to really be completely unchanged by that point. Assuming we go to a route where Jotaro and Kakyoin either just take Diavolo out earlier, or they postpone the chance to go after Diavolo and wait till, I guess, the Giorno investigation to go after him. And assuming that Jotaro or Kakyoin or both go when Polnareff originally did and get stuck in Polnareff's situation or die, or worse, actually die in Polnareff's place, then I'm pretty sure that any chance of Tenmei or Jolene or both existing would be very slim. But that's just my opinion. And I feel like if we are going with a timeline where both Jolene and Tenmei exist, if it's a timeline where only Jolene exists, it's just canon Stone Ocean. If we're going with a time, again, I don't really think Kakyoin would, because by that point I don't see Kakyoin. I think Kakyoin would have a kid. Assuming he doesn't, I don't really think he even would get involved with Part 6. And if he were to get involved with Part 6, it'd be like the one who would actually contact Jolene and tell her about the Speedwagon Foundation delivering the disc with Savage Garden. That's like the only time I could actually see Kakyoin doing something if Tenmei doesn't exist. And I don't even think he'd show up for the final fight, realistically. But in a timeline where Tenmei exists, I feel like Kakyoin would at least want to be there to help out his son, etc. So, by that logic, I think Kakyoin should have a kid, because that's like the only reason I could actually see him getting involved with Part 6, just in my personal opinion. And I'm pretty sure we could still get the Morio cast there, which I most definitely think they would still get involved, unless like one of them just like go to Italy and die. I don't think Josuke is gonna die. Maybe the other, and I also don't think Koichi would die, since he was probably fated to live. Knowing how Rolling Stone does that whole fate thing, I'm pretty sure Koichi's odds of living were pretty high, since, I mean, if Jarno, Mista, Trish, and Fugo were all fated to live, I'm pretty sure Koichi was just as fated to survive the trip to Italy, as much as they were fated to survive the events of Italy. So I'm pretty sure Koichi would live regardless. Josuke is going to live, because I don't see him dying. Okuyasu and Rohan, I mean, Rohan probably has enough plot armor with the whole Thus Spoke storylines. Okuyasu is like the only one who probably stands a chance dying in Italy, but I don't think he would. I think he might just die in Part 6 probably, but that's just my opinion. But I feel like this would kind of just lead to a Kakyoin Part 6 what if that I normally always do, and I don't really think there's much else I could really say. And that's kind of just it for Part 6 as a whole. That's just my overall opinion. And if I kind of had to pick, I guess, how this timeline would go for me, Part 3, I'd probably just have Polnareff die to save Jotaro, to give Jotaro, like, PTSD, make it even worse. And then Kakyoin could, like, somehow survive, revealing the world's power. And then, like, for Part 4, I would probably just have Jotaro and Kakyoin work together, and have them postpone, like, the Passione investigation until they find out about Jarno. And then, by that logic, that would just lead to Part 5 happening, and I personally just don't think much would change there. Except that Jotaro and Kakyoin would be a lot more useful, and I could see them actually bringing along some type of help to help out. And I do think the final fight would definitely be very different. On a side note, if you are wondering if Kakyoin died in like the final fight of Part 5 or Jotaro died, how that would affect the part, I mean, assuming Josuke, Koichi, Rohan, and Okuyasu die, or like one of them die, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't affect much. Or like, unless it's Josuke. Then by that logic, Tenmei would probably just die against Pucci, but that's just my opinion. But assuming Jotaro or Kakyoin die, which I doubt Jotaro would, but maybe Kakyoin has a decent chance of dying in Part 5's final fight. Now, assuming Jotaro dies in the final fight, Pucci's plan of obtaining heaven basically gets prevented, so by that logic, Deval would just save the universe. And assuming that Kakyoin died in the final fight, though, since I still think Jotaro would be there with Jolene, so everything with Part 6 kind of beginning the same, I'm pretty sure Tenmei could still be sent out in this timeline, assuming Kakyoin is long dead by Part 6, and maybe he died in the final fight of Part 5, or maybe he died somewhere in the Adventure of Italy. So maybe Tenmei could just get Josuke and the others to come out. Maybe Jarno could actually come in this timeline, and maybe instead Jarno could maybe die saving Tenmei, or Jarno can do something to save Tenmei. Kind of get his redemption for, I guess, maybe failing. Maybe Kakyoin could like save someone from Part 5, assuming you want to kill him off in the final fight. If I'm gonna be honest, I'd have Kakyoin live. Same with Jotaro live in the Part 5 final fight. I'd have Kakyoin survive Part 5 because I'm biased like that. But assuming Kakyoin ends up like dying, I don't know if the whole body switching Requiem stuff happens still. But I do know the final fight would be different. I'm pretty sure Bakio might live, maybe. I think he would live. I think he might actually live in this timeline. Narantia probably dies still. Maybe. That one's a little tough. I'm thinking Abakio has a higher chance of living in this timeline than Narantia, which is kind of odd since I'd say more people are familiar with Narantia living in my timelines over Abakio. But in this timeline, I do feel like the roles are going to be switched here. Bruno probably Jotaro could maybe actually help Bruno. If anything, maybe Jotaro or Kakyoin could be the one who gets turned into like a zombie or in like Bruno's place. Nah, I'd keep it as Bruno honestly. Uh, Obviously everyone who originally lived still lives, and I think Fugo could maybe even come along. Like maybe Kakyoin tells him about how he used to be a coward and stuff. Now he used to be scared of Dio and stuff. Like maybe that could be a good bonding experience for like Kakyoin and Fugo. And then I guess when regarding part 6, I'm pretty sure like Hermes can like die earlier on in the story in like the punishment ward. Weather Report could probably die the same way he originally died, and I think Rikill could also turn good in this timeline, since like I could see Josuke like honoring him due to Rikill's honorable nature. And I'm pretty sure that Okuyasu and Foo Fighters can like both die against like Sea Moon or something. And when it comes to like Made in Heaven, I could see like Rikill dying against Made in Heaven Pucci, and when it comes to like the Made in Heaven death, I'm pretty sure Anasui could like survive if Josuke's here. Assuming like this is a timeline where like Josuke either dies in part 5 or something. Anasui probably still dies. But I'm pretty sure Josuke's gonna be here in this timeline, so I feel like Anasui would survive. And I'm pretty sure at the end of the day I could see maybe Josuke or Jotaro doing some kind of sacrifice. Maybe Kakyoin. Someone could do some kind of sacrifice at the end so that maybe the world could be saved. I'm pretty sure it should be like Jotaro or Josuke who maybe does the sacrifice. Kakyoin arguably does the sacrifice debatably. Um, I don't see it being Jolene, Tenmei, or Emporia or Anasui, to be honest. I don't see it either being Koichi, and I don't see it being Rohan or Josuke. I mean, I could see it being Josuke. Rohan and Koichi. I don't think Koichi. Rohan also I don't see. I feel like Rohan's living regardless because of the Spoke storylines. So I feel like no matter what, he's gonna have to live because of the Spoke stuff. And for Koichi, I feel like he's gonna live since I don't really see him dying. I don't think he would, unless you think he could be the ultimate sacrifice. Assuming you think like Jotaro, Kakyoin, and Josuke can live, maybe you could have Koichi take that ultimate sacrifice place, but I don't really see it. I'd probably keep him alive personally. Josuke, Jotaro, or Kakyoin, I do believe one of them is gonna probably have to be the sacrifice at the end. And I'll kind of like leave that up to you. I'm leaning more toward like a Jotaro Josuke sacrifice because I do feel like having a Jotaro be the one to sacrifice himself to defeat Pucci fits more. If it's Jotaro sacrificing himself, I feel like Jolene would probably get the kill. If it's like the sacrifice is like Josuke sacrificing himself, I could see like Jotaro getting the kill most likely. That's just my opinion. That's kind of really all I gotta add to this video at the moment. That's kind of the entire timeline I actually have for this. I could try to think of more to add if anyone has anything else to add to this timeline. But that's kind of all I could really add. Hope you enjoyed this what if. I feel like this was a very odd one to make, but at the same time, it was kind of interesting. And on a side note, I did find out this video was actually made on YouTube before. I knew about it for a while, so I was I was a little bit weary to cover this one. But I was thinking like I could try to maybe do something different. And I feel like I did something different by kind of like covering multiple scenarios to come out of this timeline. Because I'm pretty sure there's like multiple scenarios of what Jotaro and Kakyoin could do during the Arrow investigation. And like in the comments, I'd like to hear what you guys think. So would option 1, Kakyoin basically does Polnareff's thing, happen? Option 2, Jotaro does Polnareff's thing while Kakyoin does Jotaro's thing. Option 3, Jotaro and Kakyoin just go to Italy, just stay together, and maybe they just go to Italy, like in Polnareff's place. Or option 4, they stick together, but they don't decide to investigate Italy until like maybe after like part 4, like during the journal when they find out about Journo or something. Or maybe like another option, like do you think Jotaro and Kakyoin would actually go and like defeat Passione a lot sooner than they did canonically? Or like if Jotaro or Kakyoin went instead, could they just defeat Diavolo and Passione much sooner? Honestly, I don't really know what else to add, except that I do feel like this timeline is definitely a lot more different. I'm pretty sure they could actually use the Speedwagon Foundation a lot more in this alternative universe, because I do feel like Jotaro and Kakyoin would try to invest more into the Speedwagon Foundation than I feel like Polnareff would have tried to invest into them. But that's just my personal opinion. That's really all I gotta add, and there's really nothing much else I could really add to the story. And I'd like to hear what you guys kind of thinking down below. Maybe even your opinion on what a timeline like this could look like. I'll be signing off here. There's not much else I could feel like I could really add. So thanks for watching. See y'all next time.